Alright, this video is about invoking my rights under the Federal Trust Agreement of 1919. That was buried a long time ago. Now, concerning a trust, that is when the certificate of origin is confiscated at the initial point of sale, and that document was supposed to be placed in trust. And any trust account, you have the executor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. And you were to be the intended beneficiary of this trust. See, in 1919, the federal government made it illegal for you to own a vehicle as private property. Because right after World War I, Uncle Sam was strapped for cash. And he needed collateral to pay off his creditors. So they devised this scheme to confiscate your property. And then once in possession of the certificates of origin, were able to use them as bearer bonds, as collateral, to either borrow money or pay off their debt. And then to pull this off, they needed the boys in Detroit to engineer a marketing strategy to sell the illusion of ownership. You don't own a vehicle, you're just a tenant. You have property rights as a tenant. So now, we call the federal government Uncle Sam. I've given the Commonwealth a name, Cousin Willie, after William Penn. So I've attached two other videos to this video. First of all, homemade plates. Well, homemade plates are legal. Stop and think about it. When a truck is issued a DOT number, the Department of Transportation does not issue the truck a plate. The truck is assigned a number, and then the trucker has to go and get a stencil kit and put stenciled numbers on the side of the vehicle, usually on the driver's door, so that they're using the driver's door as a metal license plate. When you apply for a state-issued number, by implied consent, you're waiving the benefits of the federal trust agreement number. You're asking Cousin Willie to issue the vehicle number it doesn't need. After 1954, all state-issued license plates became vanity plates. So if you don't ask for a specialty number, Cousin Willie will sign you one. Before I forget, you take notice this little sticker here? We are being scammed 6 ways to Sunday. This number, when you get your plate renewed and you're issued a new registration card, this number does not appear on the registration card. And in fact, you see this Keystone logo? This is the remnant of the tax stamp. At one time, this Keystone logo was much bigger off to the side. It was a separate metal plate that was riveted to the license plate that had its own. This number was actually on the tax stamp. So a plate actually had two sets of numbers. It had this merchant number, and it had its tax stamp number. On a separate issue, at one time your so-called registration card was a registration certificate, and that was signed by the tax officer, and that was displayed on the vehicle. But they started tampering with these documents and these stickers right before they started putting up parking meters and opening up the toll booths, because they deprived you of a valid tax receipt. Because under the federal plan, you were exempt from paying tolls or parking fees. Now, Cousin Willie is a trustee of federal property. And as the trustee, Cousin Willie could attach stickers, inspection, weight stickers, emission. And in fact, we never needed to carry a so-called registration card in our wallet or kept in the glove compartment. Because initially, back then it was called the registration certificate, that was attached to the back window. So vehicles could have a registration card or certificate fixed to the front windshield. But then it's signed by appropriate official. Because at one time the the inspection sticker had the facsimile signature of the Secretary of Revenue. But then they goofed up in 1956 when both the facsimile signature and the tax identification number were visible on the front. That created a valid tax exemption. And after that was discovered, then they altered the stickers, and then they removed the facsimile signature, and then from then on it's only the number that appears. I'm sure you've heard about double dipping. Well, this is like triple dipping. We're made to pay tax upon tax upon tax. So I'm going to notify the authorities, like I said, the district attorney and the local police department, that I'm going to start driving around with my own plate. Now, I've contacted a company that will make me an actual metal plate, and the embossed alphanumeric number. I'm going to have the pica size, the same size as like on a motorcycle, and then it has the appropriate reflective qualities. This is like my Rosa Parks maneuver. I am trying to expose trust fraud. Because I claim that the only license plate the vehicle needs is the VIN plate. And the only registration card a vehicle needs is the title. In fact, you don't need to get your VIN plate renewed every year, and you don't have to get the title renewed every year. But when you ask Cousin Willie to assign this vehicle a number, you're waiving the benefits of the federal trust agreement and then turning Cousin Willie into the trustee beneficiary. And now if I was going to use this vehicle for a taxi or a bus, then Cousin Willie could assign me a DOT number, and then I put stenciled numbers on the side, maybe on the door or on the back, to identify this as a vehicle used for commerce. But just for personal use, this is one and done. I prepaid for road use. I mean, Uncle Sam confiscated the vehicle and all the equity, and that was like a prepayment for road use. And my dividend as the beneficiary, I had permanent registered status. I don't pay anymore. One and done. It's like I have my season's pass. In fact, this VIN number was supposed to be the official Easy Pass account number. I'm done. We've been getting ripped off for a long time. First of all, when it comes to a plate, this has several functions. One, it starts off as a blank piece of metal, which is state property. Then it has to list the port of registry. People don't realize that most of our regulations concerning registration came from shipping, from ships. In 1919, the federal government, Uncle Sam, declared all roads as hostile inland waterways. There's no such thing as public right-of-way. Because the only way this vehicle could trespass on the roads is that if it's registered and licensed. This is the actual vehicle's registration number. Its VIN number. Just stop and think about it. When you look at a title, it says you're the registered owner. Well, that means there was a registration process. This is the registration number. You see, in 1919, Uncle Sam declared all vehicles as stolen by default, as such contraband, subject to immediate confiscation until registered. And when the vehicles left the factory and went to the local car dealer, that was the impound yard. They were placed in quarantine. So in some respects, a car dealership is the same way as the state liquor store. That the bottles of whiskey, they're placed in quarantine, they're contraband, they've been impounded, and they cannot be released until taxes are paid. Well, when you look at your certificate of title, since there's no definition, I'm going to explain to you some of its attributes. One, the certificate of title is a confiscation receipt, proof that the certificate of origin was confiscated at the initial point of sale. Another attribute is that it's your tax certificate, because before a title can be issued, all taxes and fees have to be paid. Well, one of the taxes is like a tariff. So I don't have to pay anymore. Now, if I'm going to get pulled over, if I'm going to be getting pulled over, then they're going to have to explain why. What law am I violating? I'm not committing fraud. I'm listing Pennsylvania's Deportive Registry, and that is the vehicle's registration number. I could buy a vehicle and have a title, but I don't need to have a plate issued. So when you're applying for the Cousin Willie to issue a plate for a vehicle, then you're waiving the benefits of the federal plate. This is an actual plate. It's a separate metal plate. It's riveted to the vehicle, and it's not listed on the parts list. This plate is federal property that comes with benefits, federal benefits. See, the reason why they did this, because this trust agreement was created with a back door. So as Cousin Willie, being the trustee of federal property, he was collecting all these certificates of origin, and they were supposed to be placed in a trust account, like a portfolio, and they couldn't be touched. But they were worth millions of dollars. So they created a trust with a back door. And when you applied for this number, by waiving your actual registration number, that allowed Cousin Willie and Uncle Sam to raid the trust account like a cookie jar. So all evidence of this trust fraud, they had it to conceal. And this is why by 1936, this vehicle code was censored. The Enabling Act, Statement of Jurisdiction, and even the historical footnotes were gone, censored. The current publication of the vehicle code is less credible than a comic book. It's a masterpiece of deceptive, generic terminology. Even the name they have given it, vehicle code, generic. So in the second part of this video, that when I invoke my rights under the federal registration number, the current vehicle code no longer applies to this vehicle, because the actual vehicle code that applied to this vehicle, they made it disappear. This is a bogus number enforced by a bogus vehicle code. And before I start using this plate, I'm making a formal demand. I'll go to Tara Two Hill's office or any other state rep and ask them for an official definition of a certificate of title in writing. And as soon as they try to put one word to paper, they're going to implicate themselves to the trust fraud. This is going to be a catch-22. We've been snookered for a long time. We've been taken as fools. And this is going to be embarrassing. I'm threatening a multi-billion-dollar racket for a long time. See, the reason why Uncle Sam did this, 1919, that was the end of the First Global War, World War I. Uncle Sam's deficit went up by 25 billion. It was probably like 100 billion today. That First Global War was expensive. So Uncle Sam didn't have enough collateral to pay off the creditors. So it had to invent some kind of scheme to steal your property and then transfer that to the creditors, to the banks. Because when you buy a vehicle, As soon as it leaves the impound yard, it's immediately devalued to scrap price. All the equity sucked out as though it was a ship that had its cargo looted. Because all the money that you dish out to pay for a vehicle, that's credited to the certificate of origin. And like I said, you're not in possession. One aspect of a certificate of origin acted as a property transfer receipt. When you carefully examine this wording on a title, it says a lot of nothing. Registration is confiscation by proxy. And you just have the illusion. See, the word "my" is tricky. That's a tricky little word. If you say "my doctor," does that mean you own him? You could say the word "my" all you want, but no vehicle is yours. You're the tenant. You have property rights as a tenant. And I want to invoke my property rights as a tenant under this federal registration number. So that's one thing about the boys in Harrisburg and Washington. They're professional liars. They're masters at wordcraft. They're word magicians. This Orwellian newspeak. Because if I claim that, if I get pulled over, I'm going to claim that, well, hey, I got the official certificate of registration. I got a title. If an officer says I can't use that as such, well, where does it say I can't? It's an undefined document. So then we're going to have to explain what it is by first claiming what it isn't. And any attempt to define a certificate of title, this is where they're in a jam. Because then they're going to implicate themselves to trust fraud. This has been going on for long before we were born. I mean, what is government today? Well, after 1871, federal government became a corporation. And a corporate form of government is an engine of theft. We don't have public servants. We have corporate officers. They're there to feed their own belly, to take care of their special friends. We're just the exploitable commodity. And speaking of commodity, one aspect of a title, it's a liability license. And in legal land, liability is treated as a commodity with its own intrinsic value. See, as far as the illusion, you could never buy, sell, or trade an automobile because it's federal property. The only thing you could buy, sell, or trade is the liability license. And that was assigned a value out of thin air. And its equity depreciates very quickly. Okay, right now I'm behind the Freeland Post Office. And I'm here to show you these postal vehicles. I don't know if you can see in the video, but these postal vehicles have no license plate of any kind attached. All they have are stenciled hull plate numbers on the front and back, up on the top by the roof. Now the reason why is because as federal property, these vehicles are exempt from the vehicle code. Alright, I stopped at this car dealer because someone explained that this is an impound yard. And all these vehicles were confiscated by the federal government the moment they left the factory. And this is why what you call the VIN plate was placed on them. Because that was the mark of contraband. You have to realize what the federal government did a long time ago, long before we were born in 1919. When the federal government passed the National Motor Vehicle Theft Act. It made it illegal for you to own a vehicle as private property. This is why if you would buy a new car, that the certificate of origin is confiscated. And what you understand as ownership is just an illusion. In fact, our generation, we have a weird concept of ownership. We've lost the true sense of the word. Because if you owned a vehicle, the only way the government would be able to take it from you is that they'd have to have a trial by jury. And if you own your vehicle, your title, your certificate of title, could not just be revoked. A lot of people don't understand that. Your title can be revoked and the government could just come and take it.